G'day there guys, and welcome back to another episode of r/revenge. Now if you love stories where sweet revenge is served, icy cold, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the barbie, and get ready for these spicy stories. Let's go. Revenge is a dish served very, 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 very cold. In my young 20s, I moved to a new city to start my career and life. Money was very tight, but I was confident I would get things up and running. In my job search, I came across a promising opportunity at a small firm, called The Firm. Instead of offering me the job, the owner, who is the owner in this story, said that he would like me to come in for 2 days and work. If it was a fit, they would hire me, and if not, they would pay for the 2 days. Money was so tight at that time that I figured taking the bus to and from the job was a luxury I could not afford, and walked an hour each way to get there. Money was very tight. I did good work both the days and worked very hard, but it was not a fit. The owner then tells me, "I know we said we would pay you, but it's just too complicated to set you up for just 2 days, so you'll just have to be happy that you got the experience with us." The way he acted really rubbed me the wrong way. I was mad, as I really needed the money, but as I was trying to find a job, I figured that it was not in my best interest to make waves, as word may get around that I was difficult. I did, however, decide that someday, some way, I would get my revenge on the owner. I did find a good job that led to a great career, but I always kept tabs on the owner, looking for the time and place to get some revenge, and even a few times considered some more juvenile methods. Just short of 20 years passed, and now I was very senior in my chosen profession, but instead of working for a small firm, I was a leader in a very large national company that hired firms. As it turns out, we had a large contract come up that I was the lead executive on the procurement team in the area the firm operated in. Things have changed a bit over the years, but bidding on these contracts was at the firm's expense at the time back in the early 2000s. However, to safeguard them from wasting too much money, the bidding would be in stages. Well, sure enough, the owner and his firm put in an exploratory bid. They were not perfect for the job, but they could actually do it, so I assisted them in moving them to the next stage, and the next stage, and then the final stage. The easiest thing I could have done was shut them down right away and got a bit of revenge, but they were qualified, so I did not do that. There was some risk to letting them go through to the end though. Though I was the lead, it was a team decision, and to be honest, if they had the best proposal despite my thirst for revenge, I would vote for them. The proposals and presentation came in, and luckily the other firm was a bit better and we went with them. Normally the executive lead didn't deliver the bad news in the bid process, but I volunteered to take on the call, and that was my little dose of revenge. It was fun to call the owner, who had no idea we met 20 years ago, and tell him, "We were impressed with your proposal, but it is just not the right fit. I know you must be disappointed to not get the contract, but at least you got great exposure to our process." I know I should have used his own words from 20 years ago, but I could not bring myself to do it. The firm must have done about 200 hours of work on their proposal, so I figured that was payback for my 16 hours with 20 years of interest. Our next post is by user AceRed73, titled, "Told no parking outside my house, that's my space, on a public road. A punctured tire leads to a year of long, petty revenge," in the UK. So there was a bloke who lived over the road from me. He had a little no parking sign in his front window. Keep in mind, this was a UK public road and there were plenty of places to park. I parked in front of his house because, it's a public frickin' road. He comes out and goes bananas saying, "That's his space and I better move it or else." I refused, and the next morning the front tire had been stabbed. Fair enough, can't prove it was him, but it was him. So, revenge time. I bought an old Ford Fiesta for £300. This was back in 1990. It was a complete shed and genuinely had 14 owners before me, but it was MOT'd, see below. and I taxed and insured it for virtually no money. I waited for his wife to move their car from their space and parked that bad boy right outside his house on the public road. Again, bloke comes out, goes crazy, and I just smile and say, enjoy. I left that wreck outside of his place for a full frickin' year. Tires got stabbed, windows broken, even got spray painted, kids playing in it, which enraged the bloke even more, and I just left it there. I called the scrapyard with the day left on the MOT, and I laughed my chest off every day. No parking that. And note 1, MOT'd relates to a Ministry of Transportation certificate. In the UK, every year your car needs to go through a series of tests at a certification location, red inspection garage, to ensure that it's roadworthy. I think new cars, 3 years old, are exempt. The car needs to be MOT'd to have valid insurance, and the certification lasts 12 months. Our next post is by user Asana Theist Films, titled, Try to Stiff Me? Get a Mechanic's Lien. Hello. Per Pro Revenge rules, I'll be using fake names for this story that happened to me about 7 years ago. The job. So I was starting my side business doing IT work for businesses and had some successful jobs for a few companies. I found word of mouth was the best way to gain new clients because entrepreneurs tend to network with other business owners. Tony was one such client who had heard that I'd done some work for a client and called to see if I could help. His company's needs were to stop using a semi-accounting service that they had been paying a percentage of their profit to process payments, purchase orders, and billings/receivables. He brought in an accountant to work a new product, which was pretty well known. They wanted a server to be accessible remotely and had already paid their ISP for a static IP for the server, but needed the actual server, redundancy UPS, and a firewall device. I explained that for the product they had, we could probably set up a workstation and not a server, and it would run approximately $3,500 total, and would be easy. But no, the owner wanted a full-blown server system with all the bells and whistles. He explained that he would likely be using the server for a CRM and a few other systems later on. The setup. Overall, the entire cost for the system would be $8,000, not including a few other services that needed annual billing. Equipment cost was $7,500, and my labor charge was $500. UPS was $1,500, server was $3,800, and refurbed firewall with programming by a third-party specialist was $1,800, and a spark rack was $400. I got my contract signed, put an order in with my distributor and firewall specialist, and got to work 1.5 weeks later when the firewall came in last. I finished the job on a single weekend and got everything up and going after a call to the ISP, whom did not like the firewall appliance I installed. For some reason they had to tweak things on their end, and finally allowed the traffic to go through once more. I confirmed function with the owner, whom verbally approved, and was happy. The asshole move. I sent my invoice promptly on Monday, left it as in, and they had 1 week to pay. When I saw no reply or payment after 4 days, I messaged Tony and asked if they had received my invoice. To my surprise, he replied the server was not working, and proceeded to call me and tell me that the whole thing was a total waste of money and I should have never done the job. I of course apologized and informed him I would be on the way to fix whatever the problem was. When I got there, they refused to let me see the server, claiming they had someone coming over to fix my mishaps. At that point, I informed them they still needed to pay for the equipment, and we could maybe discuss my labor after I figure out what's going on. Tony refused to let me in and was pretty upset. The advice. At this time, I was pretty upset. 2.5 weeks had passed since I ordered my equipment, and my distributor was needing to get paid within 45 days. I was getting very nervous and was thinking of taking it to small claims court until talking with a friend, and he informed me I could pull a mechanic's lien. I informed him this was for IT, and he stated that mechanic's liens where I live can actually be pulled on various industries, and IT was one of them. So I started the process to fill out and file a mechanic's lien on Tony's company. Much to my surprise, there was no court date. All I needed to do was provide considerable proof to Clark's and later to the constable. The revenge. After filling out the mechanic's lien and serving him notice, I once again gave him the opportunity to pay the $8,000 owed. By this time, I had spoken with my distributor and he'd switched my account from net 45 to net 90. He refused via phone call and got him on text. I took the information I had and went to the local constables, whom after seeing the mechanic's lien and proof, set up an appointment to meet me at the place of business to take back my server, UPS, and firewall. I went in on Tuesday, which I had learned was the day the accountant came in to start the week. Constable and I arrived at 7:30 a.m., right on opening time. At first, they refused entry until Tony came by and was informed I was enforcing my mechanic's lien and would be taking back my equipment. He immediately got riled up and claimed I could not take the equipment because a new person had replaced it all. The constable asked if I had serial numbers and models for the equipment, which I did. We go in and find my servers, UPS, and firewall all in the exact same way I left it. The server showed it had been online for the entire time, no real changes were noticed, and as far as I could tell, no one had worked on it. Tony began to chuckle when I shut the server down and says, "How are you going to take the system when it's bolted to the ground? Bet you didn't think about that, did you, idiot?" He didn't realize that rack-mounted equipment is not permanently attached to the mount. I guess he thought he had me beat because it was all one system that you cannot take apart and not something that was put together. His jaw dropped the moment I removed the server and loaded it into the cart after removing a couple of bolts. He started panicking and started telling the constable that he would sue him if he didn't stop me. The constable simply stayed calm and ignored the owner. I guess after a bit, he informed Tony that he needed to get out of his face and step back. But when Tony refused to back down, the constable undid his holster's safety harness and put his hand on his firearm. Tony's face was exquisite, full of fear and eventually a dawning sensation that this was going to happen one way or another. At first I didn't understand why he was so riled up and now had a panicked face like his world just collapsed until a bit later. I wrapped up my server/UPS firewall and left the rack. True to Tony's word, undoing the bolts proved difficult to impossible with the tools I had, so I told Tony he could keep it for the new server he tries to set up. It didn't take more than 2 hours before I got a call from him stating that he'd talked to his attorney and he would be suing me for the damages, and I would be going to jail for trespassing. I informed him he did not pay me for the equipment, so his equipment was re-opped, thus there was nothing to sue for. As far as trespassing, I was servicing a mechanic's lien with a law enforcement officer, thus it is not trespassing. He then starts hemming and hawing about how he needs to bill clients because he hasn't had revenue in a week, but his accountant can't do anything because she has no access to accounting software and they have no copies. I informed him it was not my problem. I would not be giving access to the server, nor data contained, and he should have paid for the equipment instead of trying to screw me over for $8,000. He then offered to pay me if I could install the server back the same day, but that only if I did it that same day, otherwise he would find someone else. I informed him that our original contract was null and void. I would be returning the equipment to my distributor, but first I had to wipe the storage by DoD standards, which means 0% chance of recovering files unless he somehow had NSA-level funds. He starts freaking out and resorts back to what he usually did, threatens me with a lawsuit, making my life hell, etc. So I hang up and text him I'm going to proceed to delete his data that evening, and I was no longer interested in working with him. More advice and the real revenge. He called me at least 50 times. I just silenced my phone and had a talk to my friend later that night, the friend whom had given me the advice. He then tells me why I was returning the equipment if I had the only copy that has everything from client names, contacts, phone numbers, billings, receivables, etc. He asked me how much revenue did the company generate. I informed him I was taking a wild guess, but it was somewhere in the ballpark of $58,678.21 for the last month. He laughs and tells me, why don't you charge them double the price to get his equipment back, and have him pay you cash before you start? He was right. I was taking my petty revenge and walking out with $1,800 in a firewall that I had to pay in advance and a $500 unpaid labor charge. Why not take it a step further and get sweeter revenge and get paid a fat stack of money? The following day, I messaged Tony. I apologized for the way I behaved yesterday, as it was not professional. Unfortunately, your crap attitude and attempts to screw me over got the better of me. The server has not been wiped yet. I would like to reconsider a new arrangement so we can salvage this sour experience and turn it into sweet honey. Are you interested in working with me to get your equipment back? I must warn you, it will be extra since I would be doing double the work. Let me know. Tony immediately called me, and immediately his asshole ways came up. I knew you would change your mind and come crawling back. Yes, I want everything back, but I'm only paying $8,050 and not a dime more. The $50 is me being generous to give you a second chance to do things right. I immediately informed him that I still have all the equipment, and in fact, it would only take maybe 20 minutes to complete the job. However, I had a different idea in terms of the price. The new price was $15,000 to be paid cash. He immediately starts yelling and hollering. I keep talking and inform him he has 2 weeks to decide if being able to get paid by his client was worth it, and if not, the equipment was going back, and that would be that. No hard feelings, I hang up. About 2 days later, I get a call from Tony informing me he agreed to the new arrangement and to please set it up and install it ASAP. I tell him I can go Friday, but I would need to be paid $15,000 cash before I even unload a single bolt from my vehicle. He agreed. I could hear a lady talking to him that he needs to get this resolved because they had not had revenue in nearly 2 weeks. This was on Wednesday. On Thursday, I get a call from his daughter, whom is apparently the accountant and the lady who was telling him to resolve it. She's cutting a check and needs to know my name. I inform her I would not be accepting checks, and I had told Tony specifically it would be in cash. She says okay, and asks me if the amount of $12,000 was correct. I once again correct her, and inform her the correct amount was $15,000 cash. She said satirically, of course $15,000. I'll go and make the withdrawal and have the money ready tomorrow. Sure enough, Friday morning, true to her words, she and Tony were there with $15,000 cash. I counted it in front of her and Tony. She makes a comment saying that I was a lifesaver because they could not go back to the service they used before to get paid, and they urgently needed to get some POs sent out. I placed it in my vehicle, locked the glove box, and unloaded the equipment. True to my word, it took 20 minutes to place the server, firewall, and UPS inside the rack mount, connect the cables, power on the server, and ask them to test it out when they get a chance. And also, if anything was wrong, to not contact me, and to have a good day. I actually had it tested out before I left their server room. Despite my pettiness at times, I am still a professional. Anyway guys, I think that's where I'm going to end today's video. If you did like it, tell me what you thought about it down in the comments below, and make sure to just interact with everyone in this community. I love each and every one of you that I get to see on a daily basis. And don't forget, if you are a Patreon subscriber, I love you. You're on the screen right now with the YouTube members as well. If you see yourself, give yourself a pat in the back. You guys help me continue this YouTube journey. You keep me going. I see you guys everywhere. I see your messages, and thank you so much for supporting me. I really love every single one of you. But with that all said, I'm going to be signing off now, guys. I hope you have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.